Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So I've got you guys an update on this massive winter snowstorm that has already begun to cause big problems here in the Northeastern U.S. and the Mid-Atlantic. We've got another system coming out of the Northwest behind this that will be even bigger, and this one could cause big problems. All right, thank you for joining me here on this Saturday morning. I hope you guys are having a great start to your weekend out there. All right, we've got some big things to talk about. As you know, we've been tracking that winter storm for the last 6 days or so. Well, now here it is. You can see it's visible on radar moving in the northeast. All right. So taking a look at what we've got going on, you've got a lot of energy with this system. I think this is looking a little bit bigger than anticipated. All right. And you can actually see that instead of this storm system ending out to Michigan, it's actually got some more snow all the way up here into Minnesota, and this is all connected to this one piece of energy. All right, which there's a low that's been moving up here through the eastern U.S. This is going to switch over to, it's going to develop a secondary low off the coast, and that's going to take the system up the coastline. All right, so right now you've got heavy snow on the north side. This is impacting portions of Philadelphia. This is very heavy wet snow impacting portions of Virginia. It's looking like the storm will come in as all snow for Washington, but when will it change over to rain? I think that might be soon because that warm air is going to be coming up quickly with it. All right, so it's going to start to snow very hard in Washington D.C. I think Philadelphia. It's going to start to snow maybe as far north as New York City. You can even see on the radar that a band of snow is actually getting pretty close to the city. So it looks like for the big cities on the I-95 corridor, this may come in as just light to moderate, light to moderate, and then maybe heavy at times of wet snowfall here. But you can see this entire region is seeing a lot of snowfall from this area, from the storm. Sorry. I think the snow is going to be too light in the north to really accumulate that much, so I'm not going to be talking about you guys with this first system. And then some of the snowfall that you see on your radar, the radar isn't showing on any of the frozen precipitation like ice and freezing rain, but it's still there. All right, and it's just shown in snow. All right, but we've got a lot of rainfall as well with the system. Some thunderstorms too that could produce heavy rainfall and maybe even some gusty winds moving up through the southeast. All right, I don't think we're gonna get any snow from this in South Carolina. Got a little close, all right, but it's really the mountains of North Carolina is where we're gonna see all that snow. Uh, we've got snowy and rainy conditions in the west. I'm gonna try and get through this update pretty quick because this is gonna be a big one. All right, but we definitely have a lot of precipitation coming in. This is that big trough that's gonna be developing that second system that's gonna really start to impact the eastern U.S. and it's all because of this storm that's coming in through the west that you can see. It's entered the United States this morning. All right. So taking a look here at your alerts, we are very active here, just getting started. All right. So you can already see that we have winter storm watches up for the central United States out ahead of that system. All right. So I think these will expand. All right, but the first initial winter storm watches, I think these were issued just this morning or very late last night. But we have winter storm watches going up from portions of eastern Nebraska all the way down through northern Texas. And guys, this is going to be probably one of the most active weather weeks or time frames that in a long time. This kind of reminds me to Winter Storm Elliott around a year ago, how we had that cross country storm, and then the flash freeze. This is kind of it's kind of feeling like that. It's taking me back to back then, but anyways, getting back here, we could see a lot of snow could be seen pretty far south because we see northern Texas once again under winter storm watches because we had that one winter storm that just moved through a few days ago. That's moving in the northeast. So that takes us to the northeast where we have big problems there. We have winter storm warnings that have been extended here. They're going all the way up from portions of southern Maine all the way down through the North Plateau area and then into Eastern Virginia is where we have those winter storm warnings. They haven't made it to the city because that rain snow line is going to be moving right through there. So for the surrounding areas in the purple, that's where you have those winter weather advisories. That's where you could see definitely over 3 inches of snow. but I don't think, in those areas we're going to see snowfall totals that are really going to cause any big problems. All right, but you could see entire states like uh, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts are all under winter storm warnings. This is just because that I think southern New England is going to be the jackpot area for snowfall. If you were to want me to give it to you, but in the West, it's so busy here. We can see that in the Northwest here, into Oregon and Washington State. We have winter weather advisories, some winter storm warnings, though, going out for areas in that region. Down to California, in Northern California, and then down through the Sierras, we still have winter storm warnings because we are dealing with heavy mountain snow in this area. Down south, south of that, we have wind advisories also stretching into portions of southern Nevada, so we're seeing pretty breezy conditions, maybe some rough surf out on the west coast. All right, but in this light blue shade, that's where we have freeze watches. All right, that's going out for areas just to the southwest of the Sierras. Now out into Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. In the northern portions of those states, we have uh, well, first for New Mexico and Arizona, we have winter storm warnings, and then in the southern portions of Colorado, specifically southwestern Colorado, and then southeastern Utah, that's where we have those winter storm warnings as well. Notice how in Utah we also have winter storm watches going out for the central portion of the state, going all the way down to the southern border here. Now we can see out in southern Arizona, we actually do have in this deep purple shade, we have freeze warnings. All right, so we are definitely getting below freezing. That also can tell you that we are seeing favorable conditions for heavy snowfall. All right, so getting this update going here, we're talking about the Northeast, this big system that's coming in today. This is going to be moving out by Monday, so we're going to be hanging on with the system for all of this weekend. All right, so we broke down, kind of just all the model. We compared all the models up to uh, the system here, and I think now we have a pretty good idea of who's seeing snow and who's not. All right, right now, New York City is still expected to see snow, still 1 to 3 inches for New York City, but it's definitely going down a little bit. I think time has ran out for this to change, so I think this is going to be our official forecast. So here's the story: 8 p.m. today. Now it's already 10:40 Eastern time. All right, you've got the low coming up through the Tennessee and North Carolina border. You're starting to see some of that freezing rain, though, start to fall out into Virginia. As we anticipated, I think this will quickly change over to heavy wet snow. But there's that freezing rain. This is going to come in as freezing rain probably for DC. And then this might change over to snow. We'll really just have to see. But we'll take this out to noon. All right. Well, actually, we'll take this out to 10 a.m. So this is what's going on right now. There's that heavy snow that's moving into uh, portions of West Virginia and Virginia. That's also stretching into parts of southern PA and then into southern Ohio. This will eventually spread, and then it'll affect areas like State College. All right, and I don't think Philadelphia is going to see any big time snowfall, but maybe a quick hour or two, you could actually see, yep, we might actually be dealing with some snow in Philadelphia as we get through this afternoon. But this is just right around lunchtime here. I've got very heavy snow falling into extreme northeastern West Virginia. This is snowing very hard into extreme western and I say northwestern West Virginia, I meant northeastern West Virginia. It's snowing very hard though in western Maryland with some, off to the east. It's still got some freezing rain going on. Nasty ice storm is still ongoing though into portions of northern Virginia with heavy storms or heavy rainfall coming up right behind it. All right, that's something to watch. But you've got very heavy snow into the upper elevations and surrounding areas of Pennsylvania. This is moving up into the rest of the Northeast here. The interior Northeast looks like it could see more of a big storm than the coastal regions, but watch as that low shifts or it develops that secondary low, and here it is. It's already forming, and it's down here on the Carolina coastline. That's going to bring all the snow to the areas farther east. That's where we can see snow in areas like New York City, and then into Boston eventually. All right, but we're getting into the evening hours of today. Notice how the snow gets very heavy into northern PI. I think that's where we're going to see the heaviest snowfall. Uh, I think that if this storm can get bigger and stronger, maybe a little bit stronger, you could see this low pressure system is actually deepening, meaning that it's getting stronger. That means that we could see the most snow in Boston. I think we're going to see the heaviest snow in Philadelphia, but that's not going to last long enough for those high snowfall totals, because you can see it's already breaking apart with some of that warm air nearby is going to change over some of that snow back to freezing rain, maybe some heavy rainfall on the backside for areas near Philadelphia. And then by 8 p.m., 7 p.m., really, this comes into New York City as an all rain event, but snow is right on its door there, and it's very close. You're actually inside that cold front. So we'll click for sounding here. Yeah, we're not cold enough for snow. We're still above freezing, 37 degrees, but our dew points are right up against those temperatures. That's pretty favorable for snowfall because we've got the moist air there. It's not, you can't have completely dry air for snow, but you don't want the uh, atmosphere to be too moist. So that moves up through New York City and southern New England. Now getting into tonight, this snow gets very heavy in northern New Jersey. These pinks showing up, those are very heavy snowfall rates. That's probably 2 to 3 inches, maybe 4 inches per hour. That is maybe the heaviest snow you'll see. You've got that same band moving just north of New York City. So areas, just to the north of New York City, it's still, we're talking about extreme southern New York State. That those areas could actually end up seeing the heaviest snow, but that band of snow is kind of falling apart. But we'll see if that leftover energy on the backside can phase with the system um, early enough. But it's staying as all rain for New York City and Long Island on the latest NAM. All right, I'll tell you guys. Last night, the NAM actually wanted a few hours of heavy snowfall in New York City and Long Island. That's completely changed, and I think that this is more of a reliable run. But I do think that we're going to see at least like half an hour or so of heavy snowfall. Maybe just heavy snowfall on and off for New York City and Long Island. If this system overperforms, all right, we really just got to see what happens. But this is moving through southern New England now, getting into the middle of the night tonight, and we have still very heavy snowfall just north of Long Island. This is moving into the coastal regions of Connecticut, now snowing very hard into southeastern uh, Massachusetts, and everybody else is still hanging on to all snow. But notice on the backside how that snowfall, it's not going to be heavy, but the leftover snowfall, like those snow flurries, are quickly going to change over to rainfall because you're seeing the system continuously pumping moisture up into this region. And that's why some areas like New York City, and then probably DC and Philadelphia aren't going to see snowfall for such a long time. And this could have been a lot different. And so, those big cities I just mentioned could have seen much bigger totals if this low pressure were to track farther south. And we actually saw that just a few days out, like, about 5-6 days ago, when I was first tracking the system, we looked at snowfall totals for the first time, and New York City was going for over a foot of snow. Now New York City is going for only up to like 3 inches. All right, but we're getting into the wee morning hours of tomorrow, and we got still moderate to heavy snowfall moving through Boston. There's going to be an hour around midnight tonight where Boston is going to be in a very intense band of snowfall that could accumulate pretty high, but this is all moving pretty much due east now. It's chasing after that low pressure, which is completely off the coast. If I were to tell you, what's going to happen after the system, well, I think that the leftover energy flying around on the backside could phase with the system. Not all of it, but some of it could. That could bring snow into New York City and Long Island, and then snow, maybe a secondary, like a second half to the system tomorrow. So I think tomorrow it might snow all day for Boston. It might snow for a few hours in New York City. Not heavy snow, but light to moderate snowfall. That could accumulate as well before the system moves out. And then by late night hours of tomorrow, we should be done with the system. All right. So we look at totals, snowfall totals on the NAM, I believe. Yep, we're looking at the NAM here. All right. So starting out down here into West Virginia. Notice how also, if you look at my updates from like 5 days ago, Virginia was at a time going for the heaviest snowfall and the most snow from the system. That has completely changed. No snow for Virginia. All rain or freezing rain. All right, but you've got that snow shifted over to the mountains of West Virginia. Excuse me. You got, you know, 7 to 8 to 10 inches going up in this purple shade, then going up through extreme western Maryland. This could get a little bit heavier at times, maybe over 10 inches just between the three states area here of West Virginia, Maryland, and then southern PA. But this moves up. This band of snow moves up into PA, and this is where we see this first, big time snowfall totals. Let me get rid of the sounding here. Let me put this back. Sorry, those were additional snowfall totals because the second storm's going to be coming up behind this. But you've got well over a foot here. We're going for well over a foot in portions of eastern PA and extreme northern New Jersey. All right, how much over a foot? The NAM is going for 17 inches. That is really just under a foot and a half of snowfall. So big time snowfall in this area. Will it be cold enough for this to stick? I think so. I don't think all of it's going to stick, but I think if you end up seeing 17 inches of snow, all right, which may be a little bit overdone, then you could end up with a foot of snow on the ground. That is definitely enough to cause problems. But that brings its way into the rest of eastern PA and then into northern New Jersey and southern New York State. All the way up into the rest of New York State, we're talking about really 8 to 10 inches, but in this tiny shade of red just north of the Finger Lakes region, maybe even just right around there. 14 inches, so maybe just over a foot. Now down to New York City, talking about 1 to 2 inches, but if you're in the northern side of New York City, like in the northern metro area, maybe 3 inches, up to 3 inches, but it's just so close how much snow is going to fall here. The line is right over this area, but for all of Long Island, all right, really up to 1 inch here on the NAM. That has changed. All right, this is decreasing. But if you're in the northern islands, if you're in the northern northern coastline, if you're on the north coast of Long Island, like I am, all right, I think you could definitely see a little bit over an inch, so maybe 1 to 3 inches here. All right, but for the rest of southern New England, this is behind that freezing rain line. I mean, this is probably going to be where the heavy snowfall totals are. You can see well over a foot of snow for really the majority of Connecticut, and then up into Massachusetts. We're talking about definitely over 6 inches of snow, maybe getting up to around 10. And then down into Rhode Island, we're talking about a foot, maybe a little bit over, maybe a little bit under. Especially if you're down near the coastline, under a foot is what you can expect, just under, but a lot of snow in this area for sure. All right. Now going to eastern Massachusetts, going out, starting here in Boston, around a foot of snow. This entire shade here of red, this is where you could expect over a foot of snow, and that is including Boston and areas on the coast of Massachusetts, but down through southeastern Massachusetts near Cape Cod, around 3 inches of snow, maybe a little bit over that. But yeah, definitely 3 to 6, maybe 3 to 7 inches of snow going out for areas just to the north of Martha's Vineyard and then Nantucket. All right. And then for southern southern New Hampshire and southern New Hampshire and southern Vermont. All right, just around 7 inches, meaning that you could get a few inches below, a few inches above. But some areas could definitely approach 10 inches, maybe up to 11 inches, and then maybe someone out there could get a foot. And then obviously those upper elevations will definitely see probably well over a foot of snow from the system. But into southern Maine, we're talking about a few inches over 5. But if you go into central Maine, all right, the snow has been spreading. Now we could start to see some areas up here getting 2 to 3 inches, 2 to 4 inches really. So a big area is definitely going to be seeing a lot of snowfall from the system. But yeah, those major cities, guys, like right now, the NAM is not supporting any snow into DC. Right now, the NAM is supporting 1 to 3 inches for Philadelphia, and now the NAM is also showing like 1 to 2 inches for New York City, and then the rest of Long Island just up to an inch. All right, so moving on here to our ice totals on the GFS model, or actually, no, sorry, this is the NAM as well. All right, this is going to be a significant ice storm, guys. So starting out down here between uh, West Virginia and Virginia, we saw that band of very heavy freezing rain moving through. That is all going to accumulate, all right? And we could be expecting as high as an inch of ice to accumulate in this area. That is a significant ice storm. You're going to get sagging tree branches, power outages. I think Virginia or West Virginia, either one of them is probably going to get over 50,000 customers without power because of the system. I think that's going to happen. All right, I think that this ice storm is going to knock out power from a lot of people out here. But you're going to get sagging tree branches, trees could fall, limbs could come down. It's all because of the weight of that ice. You're going to get glazed, you're going to get a glaze of ice on those surfaces, those roadways. If you have black ice on those roadways, if you have black ice on the I-95, which I think is a little bit off to the east of this region. But if you have any interstates or major roadways that are covered in black ice and maybe covered in this much ice, guys, pile-ups, big problems. So please avoid travel if you are in the northeastern portion of West Virginia, and then if you're in western Virginia, please avoid travel because you could definitely find yourself well over half an inch of ice. All right. But in northern Maryland, similar totals, just under half an inch of ice, with areas seeing right around a quarter of an inch of ice if you're off to the east. Now, if you're into southern and central portions of PA, you might see a little bit more. So maybe just over a half an inch of ice, but definitely not as much down here in between Virginia and West Virginia. But this entire shade of pink, all right, you could expect at least a quarter of an inch of ice, and this is just a very impactful and big ice storm, and I think this is just going to cause big power outages. This is the recipe for trouble. All right, so we finished that system. That moves out, and then by Monday we have this. All right. So we've been talking about that big trough that's going to come through the west. Now this is going to bring some big time. It's going to be a big time system for the central and eastern U.S. We're talking about the western U.S. in this update because there is that same system. This is the beginning stages of that system. This trough that's coming through. There's a lot of heavy snowfall and rainfall in some areas, so we see what's going on here. Very heavy snow into the mountainous regions of Northern California, up into Oregon and Washington State. When I say mountainous regions, that could also be for the areas on the surrounding areas. The surrounding areas. So if you're off to the east here, or maybe off towards Idaho, definitely a few inches of snow over there. If you're on the immediate coast, probably going to come in as all rainfall. But if you're just a few, like if you're like 50 miles inland here, you could be right on that rain snow line. But this is all going to be moving down. Just isolated snow showers, light to moderate snowfall, but heavy mountain snow, very heavy for the Sierras. On the coastline, just tiny pockets of heavy rainfall. But this is all moving down into the west here. This is moving near the Rocky Mountains region. This entire mountains region here, this is the area that's covered in the most mountains there in the west. I think that area is going to be definitely hit by some heavy snowfall as the slow continues to deepen as it moves across the western U.S. And then this will be moving into the eastern U.S. All right, by late tomorrow night. But this will definitely intensify as your major system develops, as you can see over here. All right. And so we go over to our snow totals. We're looking at the NAM 12-kilometer model here, just less of a high-resolution model, so we can kind of see these overall totals. All right, sorry about rubbing my eye a lot. Just very itchy today. All right, but you can see everybody's really right around that 1 to 3 inch range, but these tiny pockets that you see here, these little bubbles almost that you see of heavier totals, these are those mountainous regions, and those areas could definitely see over 6 inches of snow. Anybody in this pink shade is most likely going to see 6+ inches of snow. If you're down here though, in that heavy band of snow that we saw moving through Oregon, we're talking about, in these gray shades, we're talking about over 2 feet of snow. So very impactful system there for portions of Oregon. So the mountainous regions of Oregon, be ready. Today's gonna be a big day. Very heavy snow coming up. All right, but down into the Sierras here, this region, the mountainous regions of California. All right, we're definitely talking about over 6 inches of snow, but I don't think anybody's going to really see over 10 inches, but definitely a big system there. Now into Colorado, Utah, Arizona. All right, surrounding areas of those mountainous regions, 1 to 3 inches, but in these pink shades, once again, over 5 inches of snow, and then these in this green shade showing up for southwestern Colorado, we're talking about over a foot of snow. This is definitely going to be very impactful for a lot of areas before this moves out into the central United States. So that brings us to the Canadian model. We're looking at the Canadian model for the eastern United States. We're looking at this massive system that I've been warning continuously to happen. I just made a short yesterday. I just posted that one. That's up on my channel. That's giving you guys the total overview of what's happening this weekend into next week. Notice how we're not looking at the GFS. It's not because I don't like what the GFS is showing. It's just because I want to look at more of a slightly higher resolution model like the Canadian model. All right. So watching as what happens after the system moves in, it's going to leave behind a cold blast because it's not got a great negative tilt to it, but it's going to definitely leave some room for this cold air to spill in, and this is actually going to be getting pretty far south. That's setting the stage for snow farther south, and you know this is that if this is a 32-degree line right there, you're going to see widespread snowfall in this area, all right, all across the central United States. And this is that general area that we already are expecting to see a lot of snowfall from the system, all right? So let's take this out to when this comes in. Here it comes, the first stages of it. This is January 8th. This is Monday here. You got snowfall starting to form here on the northern side. This is still just starting to impact portions of western Nebraska. You got rainfall, showers and thunderstorms on the south side, but this really just starts to connect, and this completely connects here with a low starting to form down there into areas near Texas. But you got heavy snow starting to form into portions of eastern Kansas. But when does this really get going here? It's just after Monday. This is late Monday evening. You see these red shades down there into the southeast, these Gulf states. All right, this is where that severe weather could ramp up, and now you've got a storm that's trying to take on a negative tilt, which means it's going to become very dynamic. All right, because that means that you're going to see ridging start to come up here in the southern U.S., and I call this a classic negative tilt. I really like negative tilted storms. I just really like how they look. For some reason, it's just a lot easier to forecast them. All right, but that also means that they're going to be stronger. So that means that you're going to see cold air diving down and mixing in behind the system. That's going to lead to a lot of snow on the backside. And you see these isobars, these little black lines. If they get close together, all right, that means that those winds are going to be strong coming out of the north in this case. So if you see heavy snowfall, like we're talking about very heavy snowfall for areas of northern Texas into the panhandle of Oklahoma and then into portions of Kansas, all right, that's going to be the same areas with under the winter storm watch. If you have the gusty winds in that area, you could be dealing with blizzard conditions. So that's why this could end up being a total blizzard for the Central Plains. But this really takes on that negative tilt. All right, and here it comes. We're getting into the 9th, which would be Tuesday, I believe. Yep. So we're getting. This is sorry. This is. This is. Hold up. Oh, I'm losing my time frame. So tomorrow's gonna be Sunday, and then the 8th is gonna be Monday. So this is Monday, guys. This is the afternoon hours of Monday. All right, here we go. All right, so this is Tuesday. We're getting to Tuesday morning. All right, you're waking up to extremely heavy snow in Oklahoma. You're seeing all this snow stretch all the way up through pretty much through Missouri. At this point, it would be snowing in St. Louis, but this is going to be a tight forecast for you guys as well. So we'll continue watching that. But if that low pressure moves farther south, and all this precipitation shifts farther south, we see all that snowfall move into these areas. So it's kind of like the storm system that we're dealing with out into the Northeast. It really depends on the position of that low pressure, but we see that signal for a severe weather event. We can't really say if this is going to be an outbreak or yet, but that significant severe weather event in the southeast that's moving right under that low, and here it really gets going. This is probably the most active or strongest point of it. All right, this is January 9th, so this is going to be Tuesday. All right, you've got a massive storm system. This is that classic negatively tilted look. You got that low right over here. Then you got all this precipitation tailing off to the south of it. You've got cold air. Look how far south that cold air is getting. This is just a massive Arctic plunge. This dip of the jet stream is wild. Look at that. All right, it's curving. It's kind of curving like this because you can see it's just so much warm air and cold air kind of just rotating and kind of filling in the system. But if you want to see where the cold air and the warm air is going to be, I've already explained this about 3 times by now, but that cold air is going to be diving down on the backside of the system, changing all that snowfall on the backside, or changing all that rainfall to snow on the backside, with warm air surging up, rotating, and wrapping into that low pressure center. This moisture feed, this moisture content is going to be huge. It's going to be massive. This storm is going to try and take all of the Gulf moisture and Atlantic moisture that it can, because these waters are still very warm and just very favorable for storm build up this time of the year. There's still moist conditions on the Atlantic, but even though the Atlantic isn't very warm right now, but in the Gulf it's still like in the 80s and maybe some areas in the 90s still. But this is moving up into the Northeast. Now you've got maybe blizzard conditions for areas of central Illinois. I know I've got a friend, Davis does weather. I think you could definitely get a lot of snow from the system. All right around Tuesday night maybe. Yep, this is Tuesday night. You could get very heavy snow in central Illinois, St. Louis. I know. I also have a friend, More Weather. I'll put his link to his channel in the comments and the description. I think you could get a lot of snow if you're in the St. Louis metro area. All right, and then this is just bringing a total washout of the East Coast, but these isobars are very, very close. All right, and that's signifying very strong winds. All right, I don't know if we're going to talk about the winds today. I might, pause the video and just put it up there, those winds, but these winds are going to be ripping up the East Coast, and you've got very strong storms and just a lot of very heavy rainfall for the East Coast. Big flooding concerns with the system. We'll talk about the flooding chances there, but the backside's still hanging on to snowfall. Snowfall component to the system has decreased, but we're still talking about potential blizzard conditions. Definitely blizzard conditions up into Canada and then into southern Maine. Maybe blizzard conditions as well, but very heavy snowfall. This is going to be a bad system for the Northeast. 977 millibar low. We're talking about like a hurricane out here, guys. A hurricane, like a Category 2 hurricane, Category 1 would be getting out at 977. We're talking about a winter storm system. So this is crazy that we're seeing a storm this strong into January, but this is finally moving out by Wednesday. It takes the Wednesday afternoon for this to finally move out. And wow, that is just a massive storm system going through this entire run. But it's just crazy how quickly that develops, guys. And this is going to be coming right through the west, Bowling Ball Trough, and then bam, this moves right up and ejects across the eastern U.S. So taking a look here at our current projected snowfall totals on the GFS model. All right, so the eastern U.S., it just looks very, very busy. It's mostly the snowfall from that system that's coming in today. All right, so I'll circle an area that I want you guys to cross out. This area will not see snowfall from this system. All right, but definitely some fresh totals up in the Maine, though. We're probably going to start to see 5+ inches of snow after that system moves out on the models. But down towards Ohio and then into the Midwest, we're talking about up to a foot of snow. St. Louis right now is going for 7 inches of snow on the GFS. But areas just north of there seeing, up to a foot. But I'm telling you guys, if this low pressure tracks a little bit farther south, this entire area could end up seeing a foot of snow, and this entire area in this purple shade, this pink shade, is definitely expected to see above 8 inches of snow. But this spreads in the rest of the Midwest. You're still dealing with 4 to 5 inches of snow for surrounding areas, and then we can see snow all the way down into Kentucky and Tennessee, northern Arkansas, and then into Texas, and then Oklahoma. But into Kansas, we're talking about over 8 to 10 inches of snow. Missouri, maybe the lucky winner there, but Central Illinois, once again, guys. I mean, my friend Davis does weather. If you're out there watching this, I think you're definitely going to have a good chance for seeing a significant winter storm. Depends on where you are in Central Illinois. If you're off to the north, and especially the northwest, you have a better chance of seeing maybe a foot or over in that green shade there. But the rest of the Midwest and areas a little bit farther south, seeing, definitely well over 5 inches of snow. So this entire area could definitely see a lot of snow from the system. And then into northern Michigan and into the UP of Michigan, we could be talking about 5+ inches of snow. But in northern Michigan, going for around 10 inches, maybe up to a foot in areas of central Michigan. But I'll circle the area. I think that this area is probably going to see the heavy snowfall overall. All right, but we're still going to see snowfall off to areas maybe a little bit closer to the Ohio Valley. But it's really just because there's so much moisture packed into that system that even the strong cold air, because we got a strong cold blast coming, even that can't change all of that rainfall over to snow because there's just too much moisture and warm air aloft. All right, so we look at let me look at rainfall totals first. All right, this is the day 1 to 3 outlook. So this is going out to what is this? This is going out Saturday to Tuesday. So this storm is going to be moving out by Wednesday. So you still got the rainfall that we got to look at for areas up here into the Northeast, but look at the Southeast. I mean, in this red shade, 4 or 5 inches of snow in these Gulf states of Alabama, Louisiana, far western Florida, and then Mississippi. All right, but into areas of the Southeast, we're talking about up to like 2 inches of snow. But in these purple shades scattered around this area, we could be talking about 2+ inches. This is riding up through the East Coast. I think this area is probably going to be highlighted for flooding, because there's still inches of snow, there's still inches of rainfall on the way. You may be wondering why we don't see any significant rainfall totals on the East Coast. Well, that's just because we haven't gone out that's this far yet. The forecast maps on the Weather Prediction Center don't include all the way day 1 to 5. All right, so this is just one day short of the rainfall that's going to fall in the East Coast. So I would add this is really an inaccurate forecast, but I would add like 2, 3, maybe 4 inches of rain to these totals, and that's what you're going to see on the East Coast. And I wouldn't add 4 inches. It's really, I don't want to be sloppy with this, so I'm just going to leave it at this for by now. But once our system moves out, and then by tomorrow, we'll be able to give you guys. I'll be able to give you guys the official forecast on those rainfall totals. But this is inaccurate, guys. This is definitely not what you're going to see. All right, you're going to see a lot more rain than this. All right, so please be prepared. Even though it doesn't look like you're going to see much, you're going to see much. You're going to see definitely widespread flooding in this region. All right. So that brings us to our excessive rainfall outlook. This is the day 4 outlook. The day 2 and 3 outlook, we only get up to a slight risk for some areas down in the central and the southeastern U.S. But here it comes. All right, you've got a slight risk, and then you also do have a marginal risk. But the slight risk is going all the way down from areas of South Carolina and Georgia. You got Greenville, South Carolina, all the way up through North Carolina, Raleigh, Greensboro, and Charlotte, North Carolina, through the Blue Ridge Mountains here, the Cumberland Plateau area, just off to the east of there. All right, but up through Virginia, you got Richmond, you got DC, you got areas in Maryland, you got DC, you got Annapolis, you got Dover, Delaware, and then going into areas of eastern PA, you've got Harrisonburg. This would impact Philadelphia. You've got Trenton, New Jersey, actually inside of this level level 3 out of 3. All right, I don't know what happened here. The high risk actually I did sorry, I didn't realize that the day 4 outlook doesn't include the high risk because we're 4 days out. But once we get to tomorrow, once we're inside that day 1 to 3 range, that's where the high risk is introduced. So that's where there's a chance for that. All right, but that is very rare. But we have a moderate risk going out for northern New Jersey, exactly just to the west of the city. But you've got New York City, all of Long Island, and then southern New England included in that slight risk of severe weather. That is at least a 15% risk for flash flooding within 25 miles of a point, and in this moderate risk, that's at least a 40% chance of flash flooding within 25 miles of a point. So you've already got a near a 50% chance. It's like 50-50 that you're going to see a flash flood in this red area, and then up to a 39% risk for this yellow area. So big time coming up, big time flooding coming up. And then if you were wondering what's going to happen on day 5, it's just for Maine, and it's a level 1 out of 5 risk. All right. So for the final part of the update, we're looking at severe weather. So you may be wondering what happened last night, because I did mention that the SPC outlook would go to their day 3 outlook today on that first slight risk day. And so here it is. All right, it's not that bad. All right, we did not go to an enhanced risk, which is very good, because if we did, that would be an outbreak. All right, we're still at that slight risk, but I do think I have a hunch that this will get upgraded. But this is from Monday into Tuesday. We've got a slight risk for severe weather extending from really Houston, the Houston, Texas area in the southeastern coast of Texas, all the way through the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and then Florida, far western Florida. All right. But if we zoom in for some areas here, all right, you can see that we've got Mobile, Alabama, we've got New Orleans in Louisiana, you've got areas just to the south of Jackson, Mississippi. All right. But you've got Houston, Texas, and just Alexandria, Louisiana as well. So just some big areas that are under the gun for severe weather Monday to Tuesday. And then this is the outlook for Tuesday to Wednesday, still in that day 4 range, but you still got it. All right, let me click this for day 4. All right, you've got areas stretching all the way from central Florida. All right, so you got Tampa, Orlando, big cities out here, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, going all the way up through the southeast coast, all the way up through the Outer Banks of North Carolina. You've got Wilmington, areas just to the east of Raleigh. You've got areas down through Columbia and Charleston, Savannah, all in South Carolina, and then through Georgia, and just this entire area in northern Florida, guys. I think this is going to be a multi-day severe weather, a significant severe weather event, meaning probably, if I were to give you guys what I think is going to happen, I think we're going to see 2 enhanced risk days. I think we're going to see, if I were to draw one for the day 3, because we're getting there, we're pretty close. If I were to draw it, I think it's going to be right into here. I think we're going to see an enhanced risk, which is a level 3 out of 5 risk in there. All right. If you look at the probabilistics, all right, that's equivalent to a 15% risk. All right. So the day 4 outlook, where do I think that enhanced risk is going to be? Well, I think it's probably, hold on, let me switch this back to the day 4. Sorry about that. All right, if I were to draw that enhanced risk, I think it's probably going to be in this area. It's usually centered in inside of the risk area before it. So inside of that, what would be the slight risk. All right. So we looked at our severe weather percentages. Now, why is the severe weather happening? Well, if you've seen my last 2 updates or so, I've talked about the mid-level jet on the European model, very active there. All right, I'm going to talk about it again for those people that did not tune in, in the past days here. So notice this is going to be showing us our trough. This is your trough coming in. Notice that big dip in the jet stream. This is a positively tilted trough coming in, but this will certainly become negatively tilted soon. But this really wants to be positively tilted. It's got that kind of U shape, all right? But it's when all of this energy there in the atmosphere, this wind energy, it starts to kind of like act as a shield. All right, and that's going to come into play as we get into Tuesday. That shows you that they've got a dynamic system. But look at all these winds rotating. You can see these kind of wind bars, just these these little lines here. They show the direction of the winds and how strong they are. You can see they're all rotating around that low pressure center, and this trough is very strong. It's digging down far into the western United States, and here it comes. It's starting to get negatively tilted. You've got strong winds up in the atmosphere pressing right up against that low pressure. That is going to cause some rotation with the storm. So I think tornadoes is a big threat there. But into Texas, that really ramps up. In these red shades, you're getting near 90 miles per hour, 90-mile-per-hour winds just in the mid-level jet there. But very strong jet stream here, and then you got winds well over 100 miles per hour. This is at this point we're getting very strong. But I mean, look at this. You're getting 130 miles per hour. So this is a very active trougher. This is at this point. This is definitely going to be negatively tilted. But man, this is looking like a very dynamic system. So we'll take this out farther as this goes into the Eastern U.S. And the reason why we know that this is going to be such a big wind event, not just because the models are showing like whatever amount, however strong those winds are going to be. All right, it's because of this jet stream, guys. It's so strong here. This lower level jet, this would probably be a lower level jet that would cause these strong winds. If you looked at the clouds before it got very cloudy out here in the Eastern U.S., they would probably be moving faster than you've ever seen before. But this is really ripping right up through the mountainous regions of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, and just that moves right with the system into the East Coast, along with that line of thunderstorms. And wow, this is going to cause a big high wind event for the Northeast. And I think we're going to start to see high wind watches become issued, and I think we're probably going to start to see high wind warnings once we get to that like day 2 range, meaning that the storm will be 2 days out. I think it's going to be somewhere in that region. That's incredible how strong this jet stream is going to be and how active it is. And if you're wondering what's behind that, just to look at it now, you're going to get a big cool down coming up, and you can actually see how deep these two troughs side by side are coming, and so that's going to lead to more active times. And oh my gosh, guys, that jet stream is so amplified here. Wow. All right, so that's a very impactful system coming up. All right. Now you have the climatics lining up. Excuse me. You have the climatics lining up with moisture. The moisture content is going to be huge, guys. That's the second thing. Look at these dew points here. This is how moist the air is. This is on the surface. You got dew points getting in the 60s and 50s. Above average dew points are over 55, and you're seeing that widespread in the southeast, right up against the Gulf Coast. That's why we have that slight risk centered on those Gulf Coast states. But notice why we might see storms all the way up into the Northeast is because that moisture supply continues to feed into this, into the system, and this continues up into the Northeast with dew points getting into the 50s. It's going to be very muggy and moist. It's going to be abnormally warm. It should not. It's probably going to be in the 50s and 60s for some areas out here in the Northeast. It should not be like that. It should be in the 30s, and at night it should be in the 20s. I know my forecast is that I think Tuesday night it's supposed to be the low temperature of Tuesday is supposed to be 51 degrees. That is ridiculous for this time of the year, but that moves out, and this is all just because of this incredible moisture supply, and it's going to get caught up in those jet stream winds, and that is just a very impactful system coming up with a very favorable very favorable conditions ahead of it. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. I apologize for clicking to something. I actually did not want to look at this. All right, but this is just going to be a very impactful system, and we'll look at this. We'll look at the for the last part of the update, we'll look at our winter storm index here. This just looks at how impactful the system is. This is actually a very nice graphic I like from the Weather Prediction Center. They issue this when a winter storm comes out. So in this yellow shade, you got minor impacts, expecting a few inconveniences to daily life. Moderate impacts are in the orange shade, so expect disruptions in daily life. Red is major impacts, meaning that things will definitely become, dangerous. And then extreme impacts is that, maybe life threatening. All right. So what are we up to? Well, it appears that we're up to a red risk, which is a major impacts risk. But look at this. You got purple showing up, and this is just to the north of Boston. It looks like this is in Essex County in areas of northeastern Massachusetts. You have an extreme impacts in this purple risk. All right, that means that you should expect substantial disruptions to daily life, extremely dangerous or impossible driving conditions. Travel is not advised. Extensive and widespread closures may occur. Disruptions to infrastructure may occur. Life-saving actions may be needed. That is, guys, that is pretty crazy. But you can see this red area, this major impact stretches all the way from really the eastern portions of Massachusetts all the way up through southern Maine. There, the second risk is going down through the areas of Vermont, and this goes all the way down, or New Hampshire. I'm not sure. I get too mixed up. Gets all the way down through northern Connecticut. Now you got a third area. And by the way, these surrounding areas are under that moderate impacts, which is expect disruptions to daily life. You got this other red shade going down from Saratoga Springs area, Albany, New York, and then down through Kingston, and then Poughkeepsie, and the Beacon area, northern New Jersey. You can see also in that red shade, and then other areas still have the moderate impacts risk area, which is the area where you could expect just disruptions to daily life. New York City, right now the northern areas, or really all of New York City, is under the minor impacts. So expect a few inconveniences to daily life, probably just because that heavy snow could reduce visibility and roadways could be a little bit messy out there. And then this goes all the way through northern Long Island, the rest of Long Island, just under a winter weather area. Alright, so that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. So stay tuned. I got more updates on the way on that second system. This is probably going to be the last one on this winter system. So let me know what you see, guys. Please write in the comments, where you're watching from. I'll answer all questions in the comments. Let me know what you see from these winter storms coming up. I'd really like to know. Alright, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you can get the latest information on whatever happens weather-wise across the United States. So thank you all for coming to watch this video. Have a great night, or have a great day. I'll see you guys.